Now something came up, says I'm live on YouTube.
That's right. Yeah, that's part of what we're all seeing as well.
There's a, right where your face is, Artie, there's a another little deal over the screen that says waiting.
That may be someone else, Timothy. I don't see that on my screen.
It's blocking your entire face out. All I see is your trophies and your cabinet behind you. And then there's a deal going around in circles that says waiting. Where your face is, Artie, there's a another little deal over the screen that says waiting. Right.
That may be someone else, Timothy. I don't see that on my screen.
It's blocking your entire face out. All I see is your trophies and your cabinet behind you.
Repeat.
Going around in circles that says waiting. Where your face is, Artie, there's another little deal over the screen that says
Is it
waiting.
doing what it used to do, where it would repeat?
Let me see about that.
Maybe someone else, Timothy. I don't see that on my screen.
Did that take care of it?
No, sir. It's exactly the same. Now it's showing the judge on the bench with the circling around says waiting.
Where do you reside, Mr. Major?
Big Spring, Texas, 805 Baylor Boulevard.
Oh, that's fine. I'm just trying to get a general location.
Right.
The reason we're doing this or trying to do this on Zoom is because we cannot do it in person in Borden County. We can do it in person in Scurry County, but we wouldn't be able to do that today. There are a couple of things we could try. One would be for Mr. Major to close out and then try to readmit.
Yes, sir.
Why don't you try that and let's see if that resolves the problem for you.
Use the same number.
Okay, I'll try that. Close out and resubmit.
Yes, sir. Or rejoin.
Okay, I'm going to do that now. Okay, can we rejoin?
You're not closed out. There you go.
Okay, let me see that. Is it on now?
No, it's on waiting.
Do you have two? Do you have two iPhones?
Yes.
Yes.
No, one's on my.
No, one's an iPhone and one's a different brand.
Do you have them both on to this meeting?
No, just one, Judge.
Okay. You got any thoughts about what this issue is?
You want to rejoin?
All right. I'm going to suggest, Mr. Major, that I'm going to remove you from this hearing by the video conference, and then you attempt to rejoin just like you started from the beginning. If you have difficulty and are unable to do so, then call your attorney. Mr. Aguilar, does he have a way to call you?
He does, Your Honor.
All right, then let me remove you from the hearing, and then you attempt to rejoin. If you cannot rejoin at all, then you call Mr. Aguilar.
Yes, sir.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Okay. We'll see if that resolves the issue. If it doesn't, one possibility would be to reschedule this and do an in-person hearing in Snyder.
Judge, I have no problems going to Snyder.
Okay.
That is okay with me.
We might have to, it's been a long time since we moved a Borden County case over to Snyder.
Well, this might be the one case we do it on, Judge.
But we have done it in the past. It has been a long time ago that we did it.
Well, it would take a pandemic, Judge, to be the next one. I think we'd qualify.
We might have to do a change of venue order.
No problem, Judge.
Going from memory from a long time ago. That's how we did it. If we had parties who wanted to hear their case in Scurry County and it was beneficial or worthwhile to do it. There's a technical reason we can't do it in person in Borden County. I'm working on that, but the technical reason is we do not have an operational plan in place in Borden County. The reason we don't is because there's no local health authority. The operational plans from the Office of Court Administration requires you to consult with the local health authority, and the nearest one that would qualify is in El Paso.
Well, Judge, that's once again the reason why when Austin does these things, and I appreciate and understand that Harris County, Dallas County, a lot of those, they think about that. Sometimes they forget about us smaller counties. We're just a little different, and we can't always do what some of the bigger counties can do. Just another example, Judge.
Right. Mr. Aguilar has to connect. There we are.
Okay, I was gonna. Timothy, you gotta unmute yourself.
There it is. Okay.
Now can you see, who can you see?
I see you now, Judge.
Do you see anybody else?
I don't see any, I see myself.
That you're still in the speaker view, which is doable, except you will not be able to see anybody until they speak or make a noise.
Okay.
There is another way to do it. Let me ask my coordinator because she often uses her cell phone.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Phipps, how do you go to a gallery view on the iPhone?
Let me try to figure it out, Judge.
All right.
If I remember right, when I did it, when you touch the screen, something should pop up. Like the mute and everything.
You're not muted. And so, I mean, that may be where our feedback is coming from.
Well, I unmuted because I thought I was supposed to start talking to the defendant.
While we are working on getting you into what's called gallery view, let me allow Mr. Hanshu to visit with you about your signature on the stipulation of evidence. And as Mr. Hanshu speaks, you will see him.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Major, did you go over that application for felony probation with your attorney?
Yes, sir.
Is that your signature?
Yes, sir, it is.
And then the stipulation of evidence, do you swear that everything in there was true?
Yes.
And is that your signature?
Yes, it is. Yes,
You
sir.
saying,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Mr. Major, we're still trying to get your view issue taken care of. Ms. Phipps, have you?
Yes,
come up
sir, I
with
got it. If he will swipe to the left, it changes the view.
Did you hear that, Mr. Major? We've lost this picture. You may have swiped too far. There.
Now my screen is showing everybody.
All right. Now,
Perfect.
good. You're in gallery view, and
Okay.
that's because I have a great coordinator who can do all kinds of things.
Yeah. This is brand new to me, all of this. So
Yeah.
Well, it's new to all of us. It's just not brand new to all of us
right.
anymore. We're going to go ahead and get started now. I will call the case. I will make some pronouncements, and then I will call for announcements. So I call cause number 240, the case style, the state of Texas versus Timothy Joseph Major. This is a guilty plea proceeding being conducted by remote video teleconferencing technology using the Zoom protocol. This is a case in the 132nd Judicial District Court of Borden County, Texas, under the authority of the Supreme Court's declarations, emergency orders, and the guidance from the Office of Court Administration. We are conducting this hearing remotely with no one physically present in Borden County. This proceeding is also being live streamed on the court's YouTube channel to provide public access or access to the public to the courts. Because of that, I issue the following order. No person is permitted, and stated another way, all persons are prohibited from recording this proceeding in any manner, whether electronically or otherwise, except for the official court reporter who is transcribing this proceeding just as he would do so, and thus recording this proceeding, just as he would do so if we were doing an in-person hearing. With those pronouncements made, I call for announcements in the case. The court further states that it's the court's understanding that the defendant desires to enter a guilty plea to the charges in the indictment in this case, and to do so pursuant to a plea agreement between defense and state. With those understandings, what says the state?
State's ready, Your Honor.
And the defense?
President ready, Your Honor.
Are you Timothy Joseph Major?
Yes.
And just for the record, Mr. Major, are you able to see on your screen the district attorney, the court, that's me, and your attorney?
Yes, sir.
And you may also see boxes showing the court reporter, the court coordinator, and those boxes are probably dark and you can't see any pictures or any video of a person. Do you see those?
No, sir, I do not.
Do you see anything that says court reporter?
No, sir.
All right. It's fine. It's not necessary for you to see them. I just want you to know that the court reporter is in fact on everybody else's screen, and the court reporter is participating in this remote video conference so that he can take down all of your responses as well as the comments, statements, and announcements by the attorneys. Do you understand that?
I understand.
Also, participating in this proceeding is my court coordinator. She is the one who did the quick research to find out how to get your screen to show all of the pictures, all of the gallery.
Yes, sir.
She is participating primarily to assist me along the lines of the assistance she gave us to get your screen showing everything. One other person is participating, and that is the probation officer. He is not in view mode, but he is participating so that he can listen to these proceedings. And when we're through, if you are placed on probation, to give us any additional input or instructions to you as to how and when you would report to consult with a probation officer. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir, I do.
And is all of that agreeable to you?
Yes, sir, it is.
Then let's get started into the depth of this. And let me tell you, Mr. Major, that you have the right to have someone read the indictment in your case out loud to you here in this open virtual court. Do you wish to have someone read the indictment out loud to you?
No.
Is that because you understand that the indictment charges you with unlawful possession of a firearm by a felon?
Yes, Your Honor.
And do you understand that that charge is a third-degree felony as charged?
Yes, I do.
Then understanding the charge, even though you waived the reading of the indictment, to that charge, how do you wish to plead? Guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Do you understand that you do not have to plead guilty? You have the absolute right to enter a plea of not guilty. And further, you have the right to not have it held against you or used against you in any way just because you exercise your right. Do you understand that?
I understand.
You also have the right to have a minimum of 10 days notice of the charges in your case. Now, I know because I recall us having a hearing several months ago with you present in court when we talked about this case being charged and filed. So I know you've had more than 10 days notice. Even though you have had more than 10 days notice, I will grant to you some additional time to prepare if you wish to have it. Do you understand that?
Yes, I understand.
You also have the right to have a jury trial, and you have the right to have a jury hear your case in a jury trial, even if you enter a plea of guilty, as you just indicated you wish to do. Do you understand you have the right to a jury trial?
Yes.
I have been handed a document entitled Waiver of Defendant. Did you have a chance to review and discuss with your attorney a document entitled Waiver of Defendant?
Yes, Your Honor.
And did you sign that document, Timothy Major?
Yes, I did.
Did you understand by signing the Waiver of Defendant document that you were telling me that you were giving up the opportunity to have more time to prepare and you were giving up the right to a jury trial?
Yes.
And is that what you still wish to do?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Aguilar, I recognize your signature on the Waiver of Defendant document as well. Are you joining your client in these waivers?
Yes, Your Honor, I am.
Mr. Smith, I also recognize your signature. Is that to evidence that the state is joining in the waiver of the right to a jury trial?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Major, I announce that I will accept the waivers that we have been discussing, and we will proceed with this plea hearing. Mr. Major, there are other rights and admonitions I need to discuss with you. And let's start with the range of penalties that this offense carries. The offense charged in the indictment unlawful possession of a firearm by a felon is a third-degree felony as alleged. The range of penalties for such an offense runs from not less than 2 years to not more than 10 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, that is the institutional division. It also carries the possibility that a fine could be imposed, and if so, in an amount not to exceed $10,000. You understand that's the possible range of penalties you face if you were convicted of this charge.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, I know and have looked at a plea bargain agreement in your case. Let me tell you for the record that I do not have to follow that plea agreement, but I have to tell you if I'm going to follow it or not. Because if I decide not to follow the plea agreement, then the law would recognize another right in your favor, which would be the right to withdraw your plea of guilty. Stated more simply, if I don't follow your plea agreement, you can take back your plea of guilty. And if so, we'll just start all over. You understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
The other side of that particular matter is what happens if I do accept and follow your plea agreement. If I do, then the law says you will be bound by all of the terms of the plea agreement, as will the state. And you will not be able to get out of the terms of the plea agreement if I follow those terms, even if you don't like them anymore, even if you want to change your mind later. Even if you try to appeal, you will not be able to do so to get out of the terms of the plea agreement. And I say that even though usually, in most cases, there is a right to appeal. But if the plea agreement says that the defendant gives up the right to appeal as a part of the plea agreement, then it means what it says, and you could not appeal. Your plea agreement has that provision marked. So it means if I follow your plea agreement, you cannot appeal at all. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Then let's go further and let me ask you some other questions, some of which I'm required by law to ask, such as this one. Are you a citizen of the United States of America?
Yes, sir.
Where were you born?
El Paso, Texas.
Next, I would ask, do you consider yourself presently, that is at this time, to be mentally competent? Do you know what's going on?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you know what's going on in these proceedings?
Yes, sir.
Have you understood the charges so that you could talk to your attorney and cooperate with your attorney by discussing the facts of the case and discussing how you would have to respond or might need to respond or how you could respond? Have you been able to enter into those discussions with your attorney?
Yes, sir, I have.
And have you been able to hear and receive from him his advice about the law and how the law might be affected by or might affect the facts of your case?
Yes.
Mr. Aguilar, do you believe your client is mentally competent?
I do, Your Honor.
I accept that representation, and Mr. Major, it's obvious to the court that you are mentally competent, and so I make that finding that you are. My next question asks, Mr. Major, are you satisfied with the legal representation your attorney has provided to you in these matters?
Yes, Your Honor.
And let me tell you why I asked that question, because I'm not trying to suggest that you wouldn't be or shouldn't be satisfied. Instead, I just wanted to give you a chance to tell me if you were not. And so by asking that question, that gives you the chance to tell me if you thought there was some problem with the lawyer's representation. And if you thought there were some problems, we would then work, and I would then work to try to resolve those problems so that they didn't exist anymore, if they existed at all. But let me also tell you that by giving you the chance to tell me if there's any problems with the lawyer's work so that I could work to get those problems taken care of and out of the way and no longer existing, that effectively means you're not likely to be successful if you wait to some later date to say your lawyer didn't do a good job. That's true because I give you the chance now. Do you understand that?
I understand.
And understanding that, are you still telling me you're satisfied with the lawyer's representation of you in these matters?
Yes, Your Honor.
My next question or series of questions is also statutorily required. It requires me to be satisfied that the decision to plead guilty is your decision, made of your own free and voluntary will. And so I ask you these questions. Has anybody threatened you or forced you or tricked you or in any way tried to make you enter a plea of guilty when you would not otherwise do so?
No, Your Honor.
Has anyone promised that you would get something of value, some benefit, whatever it might be, just to get you to plead guilty when you would not otherwise do so?
No.
Now, I believe, based upon our efforts to make sure you have everybody on the screen, that someone is present with you there in the room that you're in. Is that true?
Yes, Your Honor.
And has that person, who is that person?
She's my wife.
Right. Has your wife exercised any attempt to force you to enter a plea of guilty when you would not otherwise do so?
No, sir.
So is this truly your decision?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right. Then those are all the questions I have at this moment. By the way, your wife is welcome to be there with you. Those are all the questions I have at this time. Mr. Smith, you may proceed.
Your Honor, the state offers for evidence a document which is marked as State's Exhibit 1. State's Exhibit 1 being this defendant's signed and sworn stipulation of evidence in this case.
No objections to that, Your Honor.
Mr. Major, then let me ask you some other questions about the stipulation of evidence that the state has just offered. And in doing so, let me tell you of some other rights that come into play or sort of exist right here. First, I tell you that the state is required to produce some evidence tending to show your guilt. That's true even though you plead guilty. And the reason that the state is required to do that is because it helps to ensure that another right that belongs to you is in fact provided to you. That other right is your right to see and hear the witnesses who might testify as to the allegations in the indictment, thus giving you the chance to help your lawyer cross-examine those witnesses. But the stipulation of evidence, oh, by the way, that right is called the right to confront the witnesses against you. Your stipulation of evidence says you're giving up that right, thus you're telling the state they don't have to bring their witnesses into court at all. Did you realize you were giving up that right to confront the witnesses by signing the stipulation of evidence?
Yes, sir, I did.
And one of the reasons why you might do so is because the stipulation amounts to a judicial confession admitting all of the material allegations set out in the indictment. Did you know that the stipulation of evidence was an admission that you committed the offense just like it is alleged?
Yes.
In the stipulation, it also says you're giving up your right to remain silent. That's what the confession is, judicial confession. And you're giving up your right to be free from self-incrimination. That right is the right to not be forced to give evidence against yourself. And so instead, by signing the stipulation of evidence, you are in essence saying, I voluntarily admit that I committed this offense just like the indictment alleges. Is that your understanding now?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right. And just before we lost your face, we lost your picture for a second.
One second. It should go away. It was an incoming call. Sorry, Judge.
Oh, that's all right. That call
It's
is
the granddaughter.
come in.
It's the granddaughter. She's calling again. One second, please. Okay.
All right, sir.
Sorry about that.
That's fine.
There she is again. Can you call her on that
I
phone?
don't know the number.
Does Dana? Take that phone and tell her to quit calling the phone, please.
All right, there you are again.
Sorry,
That's fine. These experiences, that's the first one of that type of experience that I've had on the
I had
Zoom
her to go
hearing.
in there and call her on the other phone and tell her to quit calling for now.
That's fine, sir. I appreciate that
Okay.
effort. As I was saying, it's the first time I've had this particular development in a Zoom hearing, but it's one that can be expected. Don't worry about it. We're getting past
Okay.
it. I was about to say the stipulation of evidence is a document that I watched you go over with the court reporter, who is a notary public. Do you recall swearing to the truthfulness of the stipulation of evidence in front of the court reporter?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Then State's Exhibit 1, the signed sworn stipulation of evidence, is received as evidence in this case.
State rest, Your Honor.
Vince?
Judge, we rest and close as well, Your Honor.
The state closes.
Mr. Major, then that's all of the evidence in the case and everything up to my acceptance or whether I accept the plea agreement. So let me go over the plea agreement with you to make sure you and I understand it the same way. My understanding is that under the plea agreement, you will agree to plead guilty, and you have done so. Further, it says that the plea agreement says you will be sentenced to 5 years in the penitentiary. You will be ordered to pay a fine of $1,500, court costs in the sum of $290, and be ordered to pay reimbursement fees totaling $675. But it doesn't stop there. It goes on and says that instead of going through the penitentiary, that portion of the sentence will be suspended, and instead you will be placed on probation for a period of 5 years, provided you follow all the rules of probation. The plea agreement also says you will waive your right to appeal, and you and I have already talked about that. And then it says you will participate in what we call the TAP program. It is an assessment and then a counseling and treatment program if the assessment suggests that those are needed. Those are the basic terms of the plea agreement as I understand them to exist. Is that your understanding of the plea agreement?
Yes, it is, Your Honor.
And are you asking me to approve this plea agreement?
Yes, sir, I am.
Mr. Aguilar, have I stated the plea agreement accurately as you understand it to exist?
It is, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor.
And Mr. Smith, have I stated the plea agreement accurately as you understand it to exist?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Major, I announce to you and for the record that I will approve the plea agreement that you have entered into, and I will follow that plea agreement. Therefore, I announce in cause number 240, the state of Texas versus Timothy Joseph Major, that based upon your plea of guilty, based upon the evidence you stipulated to, that you are guilty of the offense of unlawful possession of a firearm by a felon, as stated in your plea agreement. That pronouncement being made, Mr. Major, do you know of any legal reason why a sentence should not be pronounced at this time?
No, sir, I do not.
Then following your plea agreement, I hereby sentence you to serve 5 years confinement in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, Institutional Division, order you to pay a fine of $1,500, order you to pay court costs in the sum of $290 and reimbursement fees totaling $675. But I also, as I've already stated, agree to follow your plea agreement and therefore suspend the imposition of the confinement and instead place you on probation for a period of 5 years, provided you follow all of the rules of probation. And so let me ask you, have you had a chance to consult with your attorney and about the rules of probation?
Yes, Your Honor, I have.
And do you understand what the rules of probation require of you?
Yes, sir, I do.
Can you follow these rules?
Yes, sir, I can.
Will you follow these rules?
Yes, Your Honor.
I ask those two questions because if you cannot or will not follow the rules of probation, then you're not likely to be allowed to stay on probation. Your probation under those circumstances would very likely be revoked. But if you can and do follow all the rules of probation, then your probation will not be revoked. Let me ask you a question that may sound terribly dumb, but I'll tell you why I ask it in just a moment. Are you able to read and write the English language?
Yes, Your Honor.
Then we will furnish a copy of the rules of probation to you so that you can read them at any time and all the time that you want to. So you will be up on your rules. You'll know what is expected of you all the time. And therefore, I don't have to read all the rules to you since you can read and write yourself. But I want to emphasize some of the rules just so there's not any misunderstanding. And I want to emphasize some of the rules that I see cause people the most difficulty. Because we don't want you to fail on probation, we want you to succeed. So let me go over some of the ones where others have failed. First, don't break the law, not here or anywhere else. You cannot expect to stay on probation if you're out there breaking the law. You understand that?
I understand, Your Honor.
Next, you'll stay away from drugs and alcohol in any form. You will not go into places where drugs or alcohol are sold, served, consumed, or possessed. And I make 3 exceptions. Let me pause and do something. If your client wants to come in, that's fine. Okay. I make 3 exceptions to that rule about not going into places where alcohol is sold, served, consumed, or possessed. Those 3 exceptions are grocery stores. And I make that exception so to show you we're not going to starve you to death. You can go buy food, even though grocery stores sell alcohol. So you can go in the grocery store. Secondly, you can go into a convenience store because we're not going to make you walk everywhere. And convenience stores are where many people get their fuel for their vehicle. So you can go buy fuel for your vehicle and thus go into a convenience store. You just can't buy the alcohol or possess it or consume it in either one of those places. And then lastly, I make the exception for a restaurant. You may go into a restaurant, and I make that even though it turns out that they sell alcohol. I make that exception because not every restaurant tells you ahead of time that they're selling alcohol. And so we're not trying, I want to demonstrate, we're not trying to trick you into violating your probation. Instead, we just want to make sure that you know that you cannot purchase, possess, or consume the alcohol anywhere. Do you understand that?
I understand, Judge.
All right. While on probation, you report to your probation officer. You'll do so each month. You'll do so before the 5th day of each month. You told me you reside in Big Spring. What address do you reside in over there?
805 Baylor Boulevard. That's Baylor.
I promise you, I know how to spell Baylor.
I know you do, Judge.
No. I'm a graduate of Baylor and a hearty supporter of the university. And so that's what I mean. I wasn't suggesting you thought I couldn't do it. Is that Big Spring, Texas?
Yes, sir, it is.
We're going to try to transfer your probation to Big Spring. And when we do, you will report in person to the probation office in Big Spring. And when you start reporting in person in Big Spring, you will also then send a written report to your probation officer in Snyder. That written report is due before the 5th day of every month. Let me tell you also, while you're on probation, you must allow probation officers or law enforcement officers to search you or your property. And if they have reasonable suspicion to think that you violated your probation, such as violating the law, and they ask to search you, you have to say yes, even if you haven't violated the law. If you say no, that's a violation of your probation for which you could get your probation revoked. The easy way to handle that is make sure you don't violate the law and you don't have anything in your possession that is a violation of the law. Under your probation, you will pay a fine of $1,500. The court costs I've already mentioned, the reimbursement fees I've mentioned, all of that totals $2,465. Are you prepared to pay all of that in one lump sum payment, or are you asking permission to pay that out on a monthly basis?
Permission to pay that out on a monthly basis, Judge.
And how much are you asking permission to pay each month? And let me tell you that there is also going to be a $60 per month supervision fee that you will have to pay. So how much in addition to the $60 are you asking to be allowed to pay to take care of those other fines, court costs, and reimbursement fees?
$100.
For a total of $160?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have the ability to pay that amount from what you earn and what you take in and still take care of yourself and the needs of your dependents?
Yes, sir.
All right. I not only will accept that, I also find that you are not indigent for these purposes, and I will allow that payment plan as a part of your probation. While on probation, you'll observe a curfew. You will not leave your home county for more than 3 days without written permission. You will not change your home residence without permission from your probation officers. Now, they're not difficult to get permission from. They are not going to try to keep you from moving. They just want to know where you're going to be and that you're not moving into some place that would get you in trouble. Do you understand that?
I understand, Judge.
While on probation, you will perform 160 hours of community service restitution, and you will do at least 10 hours of community service restitution each month. I've lost your visual again. I still see you there.
Can you call your mom? It'll go off in 1 second, Judge.
All right, there we go. You understand you'll have to do 10 hours of community service each month at places that are approved by the probation department, which are initially approved by me. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir, I do.
I would suggest, it's not a part of the requirements, but I would suggest that before you do any community service work, that you talk to your probation officers in Snyder by phone and ask them if you will get credit for doing the work at that place. That will keep you from doing work that you don't get credit for. Is that all right with you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then I will require you to come to Snyder on the 12th day of November of this year, 2020, to report to me for a probation performance review. It is not an adversarial hearing. It's a check on your probation to see how you're doing. If you're doing everything you're supposed to do, we will say to you, good, that's what you're supposed to do. We will set other reviews, but each time you do well, we'll make the next one further away in time. And after 2 or 3 of those, or 4 at the most of those reviews, if you're doing well, we will end them and you won't have to come back anymore. If you're not doing well, we will set more reviews in a shorter period of time, and we may impose other requirements, all of it designed to try to make sure you complete your probation satisfactorily. We're not looking for ways to revoke your probation. We are looking for ways to make your probation succeed. Do you have any questions about that?
No, sir.
I have two sessions on November 12, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. The morning is at 9:30, the afternoon is at 1:30. I will give you your choice. Which do you prefer?
1:30, Judge.
Very fine, very well. We'll set your review at 1:30. I will see you on November 12 at 1:30. Do you have any questions about any of your terms and conditions of probation, whether I've discussed them with you or not?
Judge, the only question I have for you is November the 12th at 1:30. Can you tell me where to go on that date? Is that in Snyder?
It is in Snyder. It's at the courthouse in Snyder, the 4th floor. Even though you're a Borden County case, your case is a Borden County case. This court has jurisdiction over both counties, and we do our reviews over here in Snyder. And you'll come to the 4th floor
Yes, sir.
at that time. Did that answer your question?
Yes, and you're Judge Armstrong, is that correct?
That is correct.
I'm writing all this down as we talk.
We're going to give you copies of some of these papers, and you can have copies of all of them. But we will give you some of the papers, and they will identify who I am as well. So you can also ask your probation officer any question about your case, and they will try to answer. And of course, you have your attorney, Mr. Aguilar. He will be relieved of his duties in this case, but I'm reasonably confident he would still be willing to take a question or two from you, but he would not be taking questions from you about how you should proceed in court, because we'll be through with court. Do you,
Yes, sir.
Do you have any other questions?
The only other question, Judge, is November the 12th at 1:30, I need to come see you. And
That's
I don't
correct.
need to report to, I don't need to report to anybody else before that, correct?
No, that's not correct. You will be reporting to your probation officers. You'll report in person in Lubbock, not in Lubbock, in Big Spring. Sorry about that. Mr. Aguilar will report in person in Lubbock, but probably to Mrs. Aguilar. But you will report to the probation office, and I'm going to give you an initial report. You're going to have to come to Snyder to start with to talk to the probation officer. Mr. Oliver, when do we want to do that?
Judge, this is Cy, sitting in for Mr. Oliver in terms of his appointment. Mr. Major, when can you make it to Snyder?
Can you give me sometime next week? Let's say Wednesday or Thursday.
Yes, sir.
I haven't given the people I work for any notice yet on this.
Okay, well, we'll have some paperwork, probably about an hour's worth to fill out, something like that. So how about the 12th? That would be next Wednesday. What was a good time for you?
In the afternoon, if that's okay.
Okay, how late in the afternoon?
Let's say 1 o'clock or after lunch sometime, whatever.
All right,
1 to 2.
Why don't we do 1:30?
1:30.
1:30 work?
Mr.
Wednesday
Tabor,
the 12th. Yes, sir, that'll work.
let me tell Mr. Tabor that we set another appointment with Mr. Oliver at 1, a probation appointment at 1. May I suggest 2 o'clock?
Well, this will be Shelley's case, so
Okay,
not Mr. Oliver's. So,
okay.
but we will have someone here to help him, Judge.
All right. Do you understand that, Mr. Major?
Yes, sir, I do.
All right, so you'll report to the probation office next Wednesday in Snyder at 1:30. And they will be ready for you, waiting for you, and they will give you more information about how you report to the probation office in Big Spring. We'll have to transfer
Yes, sir.
your case. That takes a little bit of time to get that transfer completed. let me tell you that you're on probation now, and you've got to start following these rules now, which includes you have an obligation to do 10 hours of community service beginning now for this month.
Yep.
You can do all of them at one time if you are able in one stretch of 160 hours. But you can do, as long as you do a minimum of 10 hours per month, that will satisfy the obligation. All right, sir. Anything else?
One more question, Judge. Is the probation office in Snyder in the courthouse?
It is, no, sir. It is on the west side of the square, directly across the street, in the middle of the block, directly across the street from the courthouse. If you have any issue, any question of finding them, just come into the courthouse and somebody can point you to the office that's theirs, and it will be directly across the street.
Okay. I've got this all written down.
Okay, good. Mr. Aguilar, do you have anything?
Judge, just to let you know, and Timothy, I'm going to mail you some paperwork that I've scanned in, some of the documents. It's going to be section S. That's going to have information. I'm also going to email you that. That'll have information about the report date that the judge just went through with you. I'll fill in that date that we've talked about in this hearing. Judge, I'll get that to him here in about 10 minutes after we get through.
All right. Thank you all. We are in recess.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
You're welcome.